Today, we are discussing the topic of dating. New questions always arise, such as today's question: can a single pastor date within his local church? Should he? Why or why not? Here's the inquiry we received. Pastor John, hello. I'm a 23-year-old pastoral intern and MDiv student gearing up to enter full-time ministry sooner than I anticipated. Being single, I find it challenging to date while on this pastoral path. First, many young women are intimidated by the stereotypes of a pastor's wife, managing a modest income, maintaining a spotless public image, and ministering to the women in the church. These are all high callings. Second, due to my busy schedule with work and school, I meet very few women outside my church. Third, I'm hesitant to date within my church because of my pastoral role. What advice do you have for someone in my situation? Is it appropriate for pastors to use dating apps? If so, how can a pastor wisely date within his own church? The closer I get to becoming a pastor, the less likely marriage seems. Your wisdom and encouragement would be greatly appreciated. I can't help but smile because I think 95% of our listeners are not in this category of being a pastor, or almost a pastor, seeking guidance on finding a spouse, yet I'm betting 90% won't turn this off. They're curious about what Pastor John will say. I share that curiosity too. However, I get the chance to turn this off and reflect on it. My focus will be on the young pastor himself, not just the seminary student or intern. Imagine a young pastor who steps into his role, maybe as an associate or youth pastor, or even as a senior pastor at age 27 or 28, and he's single and wants to marry. What would I say to him? I would begin and conclude with the magnificent truth of God's mysterious providence. There are two mysteries of God's providence that I never cease to be amazed at. I'm amazed at all of them, but these two just blow me away. One is the mystery of how God in His providence calls people into full-time, vocational, Christian service in the church or on the mission field. How does that happen? This strikes me as astonishing and glorious. One year, here's a person studying in school, maybe a junior, senior, or maybe high school, or maybe serving in a trade or a profession selling shoes, for example, like one of our missionaries did. And then 10 years later there they are, a devoted, full-time, lifelong missionary in a distant, hard place. How in the world did that happen? What did God do to make that happen? The other mystery is how God in His providence brings a man and a woman together from who knows where, 1,000 miles apart, 10,000, in such a way that they come to know each other, trust each other, love each other so deeply that they get married and live together for 60 years. I look back on how I came to meet and fall in love with Noelle, my wife, as a totally unexpected, undeserved, inexplicable gift of providence. So, that's where I'm starting. And I just want to say to young pastors, single pastors, believe that. Believe in the providence of God. He is up to something. Yes, He is, in ways you can't even see. The next thing I would say to this young pastor or aspiring pastor is that if a woman is put off by the thought of being a part of your full-time ministry, she's not the right woman. You want a woman who will not just tolerate your calling, your burden, your passion, your risks in ministry, but a woman who loves the thought of throwing her life into that with you. This is what God has been making her to be. She wants to share that kind of life, walking on the edge of eternity, with all of its difficulties and risks and challenges. And you can believe, yes, you can, God is raising up many such women in our day. He's always been doing this. Women who want to find and be found by a trustworthy, strong, kind lover of God who wants to live his life radically in the service of Christ. That's what they want. She's been dreaming about this. She wants to live that kind of life herself, and she would love to do it with a like-minded husband. Believe that, wait for that. She's out there. The third thing I would say is this: be realistic and mature and candid with your fellow church leaders, the older, mature, trusted fellow pastors or lay people. Tell them how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're hoping, and ask them to partner with you in praying and working toward a happy outcome of finding God's woman for you. Now, if this sounds pragmatic rather than romantic, it is. Finding a compatible Christian spouse ought to be a practical community project involving family and church, not a secretive solitary quest. Just get over that. That's not the way you need to think about it. When I say, ask for their help, I mean ask them first to pray. Oh my goodness. Over the last 50 years, I have prayed specifically with many young men especially. They're the ones who feel most free, I think, to come forward after a service and tell me, I want to be married. Would you pray with me? And I prayed with them. All the ones I can remember are married. There's no shame in this to go to a friend or a pastor and say, pray that God would lead me to the woman that I could spend my life with. And besides prayer, I mean ask your leaders for their counsel. Ask them to keep their eyes open in regards to their near and far networks. My wife kept her eyes open at our church for husbands, for example, for her sisters. And she introduced 3 of her sisters to the men they married at our church, and she did it very intentionally. This was quite intentional. Yes, it can be awkward, but it can be glorious. It can be glorious. Be a mature, confident young man. This will not be your last brush with awkwardness. So grow up, put your big boy pants on, and be confident that these folks are for you and can help you in this process. The fourth thing I would say is that I'm not opposed in principle to dating apps. How you go about meeting a person is not nearly as crucial as how you go about discerning that person's character. That's another challenge, and it's not going to happen on an app. But I would offer this caution. It seems to me that a pastor is a fairly public person, and the secrecy surrounding the use of dating apps could tarnish your reputation as one who wants to be totally candid with his church and especially with his leaders. Now, that's not a veto. I don't have a veto vote here against dating apps, but it is a caution. I would give preference to the open networks that you have rather than to secret ones. The fifth thing I would say is this: pursue various ministry ventures, like short-term mission trips, you might lead them or just go on them, or Mercy Ministry Ventures, Hurricane in New Orleans, and your church packs a bus full and goes down to help put sandbags up or rescue houses, or educational tours where the nature of the venture might be self-selecting. In all these ministries that you go on, they might be self-selecting for the kind of woman that would go on it too. Lots of couples meet because they follow their ministry heart on some venture and discover each other in the process. And finally, I would return to God's mysterious and wonderful providence. I have seen God lead 2 people together in the most unlikely ways. For example, 2 people at our church both wanted to be in missions, both were single, and both wanted to be married. They didn't know each other. They surrendered. They just said, "Okay, it's over. We probably won't get married." They gave themselves utterly to the mission. Both of them were sent by various missions, posted to one of the hardest places on the globe. And guess what? They discovered each other there after they had basically surrendered and said, "Well, it didn't happen at home. It's sure not going to happen on the mission field." And that was not true. So, trust God's mysterious providence. Focus on doing your ministry with all your might. Walk through the doors He puts in front of you. Pray without ceasing. And trust God's good timing. Thank you for watching the entire video. We hope you found it informative and encouraging. Please like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any other useful content. See you in the next videos.